Stay tuned as we cover the official results of the Groundhog Day prediction.
The latest scandals and updates following the recent Epstein files drop.
And a closer look at the moments from the Grammy Awards that got everyone buzzing.
Welcome to RMU Live. Today is Friday, February 6th. I'm Isabella Harris.
And I'm Nick Evans. Thank you for tuning in.
We have a developing story following a pileup on I-79, which remains closed at this hour.
Yes, the crash that took place in Butler County is currently shutting down the northbound lanes of I-79 between Evans City and Zelienople following the multi-vehicle crash this morning. State police said that at least one person was killed as a result of that crash and that at least 18 vehicles are involved. Both lanes are currently closed at this time and is expected to be closed for several hours as police are advising drivers to use caution. This is currently a developing story.
Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro announced on Tuesday a record $53.3 billion budget spending coming into this fiscal year. Shapiro also said in his address that the budget will be continuing, quote, historic investments in education, workforce development, public safety, and economic growth. However, Republican leaders called Shapiro's proposed budget, quote, fiscally irresponsible. This comes in response to Shapiro's pulling more than half of the money from Pennsylvania's money reserve to balance his proposed spending bill. The deadline to approve this budget is July 30th, and the discussions are ongoing.
ICE agents have reportedly taken a Brentwood man with a legal work permit into custody. Macklem Gomez immigrated with his family from El Salvador to seek asylum in 2021 and has approached the process legally, according to a friend and neighbor of the family, Rebecca Mackin. Macklem's wife has been calling him 2 to 3 times a day in hopes for her husband to come back. A Scott Township man arrested last year in connection with a series of road rage incidents was detained by ICE agents following an altercation at the district court office this week in Plum. The man, identified as Vishwdeep Singh, was charged in November with multiple felonies after he threatened multiple drivers in the Oakmont area with what was thought to be a shotgun. The gun turned out to be an airsoft pellet gun. During Singh's hearing, he was informed that he was detained and that ICE was currently on the property. This sparked Singh to resist against authorities and attempt an escape, where he was met by ICE, who agreed with the constable to wait to detain Singh until his hearing had concluded. A preliminary hearing for Singh has yet to be scheduled.
Tensions were high on Tuesday night during an Oakmont council meeting during a week of a resident being detained by ICE agents. Jose Flores was taken by ICE agents Thursday morning after being approached in front of his Oakmont home while preparing to take his daughter to school. He and his wife are reportedly in the legal asylum process and have had 5-year work visas. Residents of Oakmont proposed legislation stating that the borough will not be working with ICE. ICE has reportedly bought an $87 million warehouse in Berks County as an expansion of the detention centers across the United States. The 520,000 square foot warehouse can house up to 1,500 beds. The Upper Moon Township has stated they were not involved with this transfer and have not received any applications from either the prior or new owners regarding the future use of the property. Democrat State Senator Judy Schwank declined to comment on the warehouse that was purchased on Monday, but later made a comment stating that it is deeply concerning.
Charges were filed this week against 8 teenagers in connection to a string of gun thefts that took place in January of last year. Allegheny County Police said that the group of teenagers targeted 4 separate gun stores in Pennsylvania and Ohio, stealing a total of 79 guns. The burglary was described as a smash and grab, with the individuals shooting their way into stores. Police said 1,400 charges have been filed in connection with the year-long investigation. 55 of the stolen guns were recovered, but the others were not and are connected to several recent violent crimes and incidents. 19-year-old Shalise Ramey, who has a long history of crimes dating back to a run-in with the police at 6 years old, is being charged as an adult for the incident.
The Pittsburgh City Council unanimously approved Jason Lando as police chief and Sheldon Williams as public safety director on Wednesday of this week. A Squirrel Hill native and veteran of Pittsburgh's police force, Lando spent the last 5 years serving as police chief in Frederick, Maryland. During his tenure in Maryland, Lando was accused of using an anonymous number to send harassing messages to a former subordinate, but was determined to have committed no violations of criminal law And Sheldon Williams launched his career as a Pittsburgh paramedic before serving 18 years in the Army Reserves and Air Force National Guard. He also worked as a member of the Pittsburgh Police SWAT team and bomb squad.
Late Tuesday night, 2 people were injured in a head-on crash on the Fort Duquesne Bridge in Pittsburgh. The accident happened shortly before midnight on the bridge near the Route 65 exit on southbound I-279. The 2 people involved were taken to the hospital and their conditions are currently unknown. The story is ongoing.
Many were disappointed this Groundhog's Day when Punxsutawney Phil predicted at least 6 more weeks of winter weather. This prediction came just a week after a large snowstorm swept through nearly half the country. The news was greeted by many boos from tens of thousands of people who were brave enough to brave the temperatures in the single digits as they awaited the annual shadow reveal. Locals and guests usually come up on stage and take pictures with Phil after his prediction, but this year the announcer said that it was too cold and that they were afraid to keep him out for too long. The rising temp could be going down a bit this weekend. We're going to send it over to Lex for the forecast over the next 48 hours.
Thanks, guys. I'm Lex and I'll be your weather woman today. So taking a look at today's weather, we're going to have a high of 28 degrees, a low of 6 degrees, and a 59% chance of precipitation. And then looking at the hourly forecast, at 4 p.m. it's going to be cloudy and 27 degrees, and then at 7 p.m. it's going to be snowy, 27 degrees, and at 9 p.m. we are going to see the same thing. It's going to be snowy and 27 degrees. So if you like sledding, it'll be a good night to pull out your sleds. And then looking at tomorrow's forecast, we're going to have a high of 14 degrees, a low of 2 degrees, and 15% chance precipitation. That's all the weather I have for you now. Stay tuned later for the 5-day forecast.
Thanks, Lex. It is a little icy out there, so make sure to be safe on the roads. Well, coming up next, new movement in the Epstein investigation as high-profile persons are now being called to testify.
Plus Trump's new strategy switch for Republicans in the upcoming midterm elections.
And how you could help cope with this cold season's winter blues after this.
When I first saw a turtle, my heart was full. Now anything but lonely.
We had this deep connection, this heart connection.
He just wants to be close to you and part of your life.
Every day with turtle is a perfect day.
When I'm holding her, it makes me feel calmer.
I think everything he does shows how much he loves us.
When we adopt a shelter pet,
We discover
they're a little bit of a lot of things.
But they're all pure
Pure love.
love.
If I could go back and change it all, I would. I think I'm gonna miss you the most. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Maybe it's just the little moments. If I could go back and change it all, if I could go back, I would. But I can't.
There was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children, she didn't know what to do. She gave them some broth without any bread and kissed them all soundly and put them to bed. Hunger is a story we can end. End it at feedingamerica.org.
Welcome back to RMU Live.
Former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton finalized an agreement with House Republicans on Tuesday to testify in a House investigation into Jeffrey Epstein later this month. The arrangement comes after months of negotiating between the two sides as Republicans sought to make the Clintons a focal point in a House committee's investigation into Epstein. Hillary Clinton will testify before the House Oversight Committee on February 26th, and Bill Clinton will appear on February 27th. It will mark the first time that lawmakers have compelled a former president to testify. There are new revelations after the Department of Justice released more than 3 million pages of files related to Jeffrey Epstein. CNN's Tom Foreman takes a closer look at the latest batch of Epstein files.
I didn't see it myself, but I was told by some very important people that not only does it absolve me, it's the opposite of what people were hoping.
The newly released documents do contain a list compiled last year by the FBI of unproven allegations that President Donald Trump committed sexual
I hear him
assault,
faintly, but this is too
including
loud.
one woman saying he raped her when she was just 13. That same woman sued Trump in 2016 over the claims, but dropped the lawsuits shortly after bringing them. In another section, one of Jeffrey Epstein's victims says Ghislaine Maxwell presented her to Trump at a party. When asked about this, the White House points to a Justice Department statement that the files may include, quote, fake or false submitted images, documents, or videos. And Trump has always denied such allegations.
In July, the Department of Justice said that we had reviewed the files, the quote, Epstein files, and there was nothing in there that allowed us to prosecute anybody.
Still, the files have put a number of high-profile people in an unwanted spotlight. A series of photos appears to show former British Prince Andrew kneeling by a woman or girl on the floor. There is no context, and CNN's requests for comment were not immediately answered. Billionaire Elon Musk has previously said he refused an invitation to Epstein's island. The documents suggest he wanted to be there for the wildest party. After the release, Musk posted, "I have never been to any Epstein parties ever and have many times called for the prosecution of those who have committed crimes with Epstein." Howard Lutnick, Trump's Secretary of Commerce, said he and his wife decided to cut ties with Epstein 2 decades ago.
My wife and I decided that I will never be in the room with that disgusting person ever again.
Yet the documents point to at least a couple of attempts to socialize with Epstein after that. The Commerce Department says Secretary Lutnick had limited interactions with Mr. Epstein in the presence of his wife and has never been accused of wrongdoing. Another one-time top Trump advisor, Steve Bannon, appears in the files, at times mocking the president, and the famous names go on, though notably many show no links to any potential illegality. Dinner invitations for Woody Allen, Martha Stewart, and Katie Couric, who said here, "I know you're not a foodie, but the lasagna was rockin'." Billionaire Richard Branson, New York Giants owner Steve Tisch are mentioned, and so is Brett Ratner, seen in a photo on a sofa with Epstein and some young women. He's the director of that new Melania Trump film. The new release brought at least one fresh controversy, too. The New York Times raised the possibility that the Justice Department had released nearly 40 unredacted images showing both nude bodies and the faces of the people portrayed, noting the people in the photos appeared to be young.
Well, after the release of the files, a deal was reached between lawyers for victims of Jeffrey Epstein and the Justice Department to protect the identities of nearly 100 women whose lives were allegedly harmed after the government began releasing millions of documents last week. The mentioned mistakes included nude photos showing the faces of potential victims, as well as names, email addresses, and other identifying information that was either unredacted or not fully obscured.
President Trump stated on Monday that Republicans should nationalize elections after continuing to double down on false conspiracy theories about the widespread voter fraud in the 2020 presidential election. This comes less than a week after the FBI raided an elections office outside of Atlanta, seizing ballots and other voting records from the 2020 election. The president also repeatedly insisted that he won the 2020 election in a, quote, landslide, alleging without evidence that people voted illegally in the election. He also made a nod to the FBI's raid in Fulton County, Georgia, teasing that, quote, "You're going to see some interesting things coming out," end quote.
HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announced on Monday that his department will devote $100 million towards a pilot program addressing homelessness and substance abuse in 8 cities. This is building upon an executive order President Donald Trump signed last week related to addiction. The new initiatives represent momentum for Trump's executive order signed last Thursday, launching what Trump calls the quote-unquote Great American Recovery Initiative to better align federal resources on the addiction crisis.
A small decision in rural Wisconsin was now uncovered a much bigger problem. In 2022, Wisconsin resident Kristen Hanneman agreed to letting state scientists check her private well for PFAS, or forever chemicals, which are man-made inside chemicals that are known for their extreme resilience and in the environment. The testing revealed a widespread contamination due to the industrial waste being spread on by nearby farmland decades ago. Across the country, many communities near factories or military sites face similar contamination. Penn State researchers conclude a study this week determining that 65% of the sampled private wells in Pennsylvania are contaminated forever chemicals. These PFAS pose health risk to consumers as they've been linked to certain cancers. If you're not happy with Punxsutawney Phil prediction, you're not alone. Many people feel a significant shift in their mood and motivation during these winter months. And whether Phil's prediction was right or not, there are many things you could do to give your blahs a boost.
They do more than just predict the weather. Groundhogs whistle when alarmed. They're the largest member of the squirrel family, have a constant need to gnaw, and if you hide out to survive harsh winters, you have more in common with these guys than you may realize.
As humans, we're animals too, so we can be vulnerable to hibernation, and some people are just much more vulnerable.
Clinical psychologist Craig Sawchuk with Mayo Clinic says when it's dark and cold outside, it's not uncommon for people to feel the winter blues. Symptoms may include wanting to sleep more, a drop in energy, feeling sad or down, having heavy limbs, and craving carbohydrates, which may lead to weight gain.
And then the spring and summer months, we get back to our usual baseline.
Whether it feels right or not, you can beat the blues before spring is sprung. First, Sawchuk says lifestyle factors like exercising, staying connected, and maintaining a regular sleep schedule while avoiding oversleeping can all help. So can light therapy. He says using a light box can improve your mood. There's also cognitive behavioral therapy and medication management.
When those symptoms start to become more prominent, they start to cause problems in day-to-day living, then that's when we look at a difference between just having winter blues versus actually being a problem of clinical concern.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
Sawchuk says that if symptoms make it hard to take care of things around the house, getting in the way of being able to be productive at all at work, or if you're noticing any withdrawing from others, that's when you should see a medical provider who can help.
RMU-TV is your outlet for the latest news stories, sports updates, and campus life.
Our campus news-based show, RMU Focus, airs Mondays at 3 p.m. Following this on Wednesday afternoon is Sports Talk in the Berg at 5:15.
And Colonial Sports Center on Thursday nights at 9:30. And finally, our show, RMU Live, on Fridays at 4 p.m. Make sure to tune in on YouTube at RMU-TV. Well, the Olympics are officially underway, and coming up, we have a breakdown as the games commence.
Also, a recap of the Penguins' skate to victory last night.
And a look at the matchup of what's ahead as we approach the Super Bowl weekend after the break.
If you love them enough to suck the snot out of their nose at 4 a.m., then surely you'll check NHTSA.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat.
Today, we face an unprecedented crisis. Tens of millions of refugees have been forced from their homes. But you can make a difference. Turn disruption and despair to hope and opportunity. Even small amounts make a big difference. Provide shelter, support, or jobs in your community. The more we understand, the greater sense of belonging we create. Act now. Visit supportcrisisrelief.org.
I don't want to talk about it.
I don't want to talk about it.
Families don't have to talk about everything, but they should talk about how to plan for an emergency. Get tips and resources to make your family's emergency plan.
Welcome back to RMU Live.
The 2026 Winter Olympics in Milan, Italy are officially underway as this opening ceremony began today at 2 p.m. Eastern. The star-studded event taking place at Milan's San Siro Stadium includes performances by Mariah Carey, Laura Pausini, Andrea Bocelli, and Sabrina Impactori. The games will span across 16 days, and the competition will include 230 athletes from the United States. NBC carries the broadcasting rights for the Olympics, with events taking place on Peacock, USA Network, CNBC, or NBC itself. This year's games are headlined by the multiple stories including Lindsey Vohn's return to the slopes and the NHL players playing best on best hockey at the Olympic stage for the first time since 2014.
The highly anticipated NFL draft taking place in Pittsburgh will begin in April of this year, and NFL just provided renderings this week for how the layout will look. The stage for the draft will be placed outside of Acrisure Stadium. The NFL's Fan Festival will be staged at Point Park. The Roberto Clemente Bridge will be closed to vehicle traffic, creating a walkable connection between the North Shore and downtown. Details on fan entry points, transportation plans, and event logistics will be announced closer to the draft on April 23rd, but more road closures are expected. Well, now continuing into more sports, let's send it over to Joey with the latest.
Hello everyone, welcome back with your regularly scheduled program with myself, Joey Dramasic, back at it at the sports desk. Now let's not waste any time and get right into it. Following a buzzer-beating defeat to the #1 team, the Green Bay Phoenix, the RMU women's basketball team sets their sight on their next home game versus Milwaukee this weekend. The 15-8 Colonials are set to tip off at 2 p.m. at the UPMC Event Center tomorrow in Moon Township. Over to the men's team who took down the #1 seed Wright State Raiders Wednesday evening. They look to sweep the season series versus Youngstown State this Saturday. The Colonials are looking for their 16th win of the season and 8th win in conference. Tip-off is tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. in Youngstown, Ohio. Now let's head outdoors for the men's lacrosse team, who took a crushing blow on Monday in a 15-point loss to Johns Hopkins. Bobby Moe is back in action tomorrow in Richmond, Virginia at 4:30 versus Richmond University. Over to the women's side, who are currently taking on George Mason, and their season opener are looking to start things off with a win to start their MAC championship campaign once again. The ladies' home opener is next Friday versus Canisius at 4 p.m. Let's head back inside the hockey with the men's hockey team, who are currently coming off a game where they took points from Bentley in a shootout victory. The men are currently 7-16-3 on the season and are looking to gain a huge 6 points versus Canisius. Both games are at home for the Colonials, with puck drop set at 7 p.m. for the weekend series tonight and tomorrow. After a historic weekend for the women's hockey team last weekend versus Penn State, the Colonials finally returned to their home ice as they take on the newly accommodated Delaware Blue Hens. The game today is already underway, and the game tomorrow is set to begin at 3 p.m. This series has a chance to have huge implications for the Colonials' AHA playoff hopes. I traveled downtown for the Pittsburgh Penguins, who are coming off a win last night against the Buffalo Sabres in a 5-2 victory. The Pens are currently still second in the Metropolitan and are now on a 3-week break for the Olympics and will resume their season on the 26th versus the Jersey Devils. Let's say to the association as the NBA trade deadline ended yesterday at 3 p.m. after a slow start to the trade season. Let's take it to the association as the NBA trade deadline ended yesterday at 3 p.m. after a slow start to the trade season. The trades with superstars picked up as 3 p.m. approached. Trae Young was traded from the Atlanta Hawks to the Washington Wizards, as Young was the first big domino of the fall this trade season. The Grizzlies traded former Defensive Player of the Year Jaren Jackson Jr. to the Utah Jazz in return of role players and 3 first-round draft picks. The big blockbuster was between the Cavs and Clippers that sent James Harden to Cleveland and Darius Garland to LA. Finally, the Washington Wizards ended the trade deadline in a deal where they acquired Anthony Davis, D'Angelo Russell, Jalen Hardy, and Dante Exum from the Mavericks for Chris Middleton, A.J. Johnson, Tyus Jones, Marvin Bagley III, 2 first-rounders, and 3 second-rounders. It will certainly be interesting to see at the end of the season who were some of the big winners and biggest losers this trade deadline. To end the show, the biggest American football game is this weekend, and of course, I'm talking about the Super Bowl. In the 60th edition of the Super Bowl, they will be featuring the AFC champions, the New England Patriots, and the NFC champs, the Seattle Seahawks. After both teams secured the same record, 14-3, both of these teams had their challenges in each of their respective conference championship games. the Patriots took down the Bo Nicholas Denver Broncos in Denver. After a slow offensive performance, the Patriots defense took down Denver 10-7. The Seahawks were in an offensive shootout versus the Rams. The Seahawks took down their NFC West opponent 31-27. 11 years ago, these two programs faced off in the Super Bowl, which saw the Patriots taking down the Seahawks 28-24. Kickoff for Super Bowl 60 is set at 6:30 p.m. in Santa Clara, California. Be sure to come back next week for your weekly sports update. Back.
Thanks, Joey. I'm sure Pittsburgh fans are not happy that the Pens are off for so long, but getting to see best on best hockey for the national stage sure is a treat.
After this break, what to expect? We have a near temperature swing in the week ahead.
And a Grammys breakdown beyond the performances and awards with Sarah Krim here on RMU Live.
Let's see it, Steve. Women's basketball.
Found my heart out there in the open. Trees make you feel smaller. Can't help but get lost again. If I need a break, know where I'm going. Where the water's flowing, I'd rather be floating. If it's something I can count on to be free.
Feel the beat of nature at a park or forest near you. Find a forest and music inspired by nature at discovertheforest.org.
Let's send it over to Lex for the weather of this upcoming week.
Taking a look at the 5-day forecast, we're going to start to see some warmer temperatures as we get into the week. But starting with Sunday, it's going to be partially cloudy, a high of 21 degrees, a low of 0 degrees. And then on Monday, it's going to be partially cloudy again, a high of 29 degrees, low of 18 degrees. On Tuesday, partially cloudy, high of 45 degrees, a low of 33 degrees. And then on Wednesday, we are going to see some snow and rain with a high of 38 degrees, a low of 25 degrees. And on Thursday, partially cloudy, high of 31 degrees, low of 19 degrees. That's all the weather that I have for you this week. Back to the desk.
Thanks, Lex. It's nice to hear that the weather is gradually going to warm up and get better each day. Maybe the groundhog was wrong.
From the night's biggest moments to the music's most famous names, let's send it over to Sarah with all of our Grammy updates with her Art Corner.
Thanks, guys. I'm Sarah Krim, and welcome to my Art Corner. Today we're diving into one of my favorite forms of art, the art of music. The 68th Annual Grammy Awards took place this past Sunday, February 1st. And as always, the night was filled with iconic performances, big moments, and even bigger wins. Some of the night's performers included Post Malone, Miss Lauryn Hill alongside Raphael Saadiq and Jon Batiste, Bruno Mars with Rosé, Lady Gaga, Sabrina Carpenter, Addison Rae, Tyler the Creator, and Justin Bieber. Each performance brought its own style and energy, and that showed just how diverse and creative the music industry is right now. Now let's get into the awards. Olivia Dean took home Best New Artist, marking a huge milestone in her career. Jelly Roll won Best Contemporary Country Album for Beautifully Broken, continuing his impressive rise across genres. Lady Gaga won Best Pop Album for Mayhem, while Kendrick Lamar won Best Rap Album for GNX, making him the most Grammy-awarded rap artist with 27 Grammys, officially surpassing Jay-Z. When it came to the big song categories, Kendrick Lamar and SZA won Record of the Year for Luther, and Billie Eilish's song Wildflower earned Song of the Year. And of course, the most prestigious award of the night, Album of the Year, went to Bad Bunny for Devi Tirar Ma Fotos. On top of that, he's set to perform at the Super Bowl halftime show this Sunday, February 8th, making this a huge week for him. This Grammy Awards also announced that it will be the last one that Trevor Noah announces, and the last time they will be streamed on CBS. Well, that's all I have for you today from my Art Corner. Be sure to stay tuned for next time. Back to you guys at the desk.
Thanks, Sarah. It's great to hear about artists getting the recognition they deserve.
Thank you for watching RMU Live. We hope you have a great weekend.
And we'll see you next time.